Mark Smelly Bell here. Wanted to communicate with you guys about sugar fasting, the sugar diet, and some modifications that I've made. Over the last couple weeks, I've been experimenting more with having a little bit more protein in the latter half of the day, and I'm still utilizing sugar fasting throughout the morning time with some couple of small changes where I may have a little bit of rice, or I might have a little bit of like a rice cake or something like that. Sorry about the dog barking out here in Bodega Bay. It's windy and there's tons of dogs on the street, so you might not always be able to hear me the best you possibly can, but I want to make this video just to keep active with communicating with you guys the best as I can. So I might have some rice cakes, and also starchier fruits on purpose so that I'm not just only having the simple sugars. I ran into a couple of issues. One was, a lot of you guys saw me talking about smoothies. I ran into some smoothie issues, and the smoothie issues that happened were that they were making me cold. So it was primarily, like, once I took that out, my cold tolerance shifted immediately. So I was having like 3 smoothies a day. Now I might have one, I don't know, once a day, once every other day, something like that. So I cut back on those. That seemed to help me tremendously. And I'm just sharing my own experiences, and then you guys can kind of do what you want. But after having a lot of people report back, my original sugar diet that I first talked about had protein in there. And I've been talking a lot about sugar fasting by day, lean meat, and starch by night. And now I don't even know how necessary that really is, but I'm still experimenting with that because that feels good to me. And it feels like it could be stimulating some of the things that are potentially assisting with further fat loss and weight loss. I was 211 this morning, and my body weight is finally trending back downward after taking a little bit of time off from that. I've been traveling a bunch, and I have a bunch of traveling coming up. But still, that aside, I'm going to just kind of set the goal out there by the end of August to be finally around that 200-pound mark, and then I'll work within being 205 to 210 basically for a while until I reset the goal and figure out if I want to gain weight, lose weight, or whatever it might be from there. In terms of muscle mass and stuff like that, depending on what picture I post or what video I post, people change their mind every week on whether I'm like more jacked or less jacked. And, there's angles and there's lighting and there's this and there's that, but I'm 210 pounds and I'm probably anywhere between 7.5% to 9% body fat, somewhere in there. And with that type of leanness coming from where I've come from, it's going to be difficult for me to always look big with my height and so forth. But I don't know, I used to be right around 6 feet tall, and I think I'm like 5'10" now if I'm lucky. 5'10" on a good day. Anyway, I love all this shit, man, and I hope that you guys understand that, and I hope that you guys know that I love to experiment with these things. So I'm going to make some changes as I see fit. I'm also going with some of the recommendations from Cole. I know some of you hate him. Some of you hate the fact that he changes his tune here and there, but what he's chasing after is the same thing I'm chasing after, and it's the same thing you're chasing after, and that's results. And I want to help people get results. So basically, if you can just think of this for the diet, because compliance is the science, and compliance and consistency are the 2 major things that will keep you going on your diet. Another thing that keep you going on your diet is to see some weight loss. So the scale should still trend downward, not daily. You shouldn't be, fired up about like losing, 7 pounds in 3 days, just as you shouldn't be worried about gaining 7 pounds in 3 days. The scale is more of a marker over time, but I personally like to weigh myself every day. You don't have to. You can choose to have your own interpretation of the scale. You could choose to have your own interpretation of whether you want to count calories or not. But this is a high carb, extremely low fat protocol for weight loss. And if you're going to count calories, I do not want you to particularly try to get yourself into a caloric deficit. I'd rather have you have your hunger signals and so forth dictate whether the day is in a little bit of a surplus or a little bit of a low here and there. But stay with me for a second here and be patient. You're trying to increase your metabolic rate. And one of the reasons why I abandoned going, multiple days, which you guys can still do, it's your experiment, right? The Smelly Protocol 2.5 and 1.5. I still stand by those. I still think those can be effective. I don't think that we always need protein, but I think it's helpful for those of us that train hard. Maybe for those of you that train less, maybe that's more appropriate. But for myself, I shifted into this new mode for multiple reasons, and I'll probably still do a full-on day of sugar fasting here and there, just like I'll go back to doing a dry fast, just like I'll go back to doing a 24-hour fast, probably occasionally, or one meal a day for a few days or something like that. I realize those things aren't necessarily pro-metabolic, but not everything we do has to be pro-metabolic all the time. Sometimes the negative impact of something is partially the positive of it. Just like when we're talking sometimes about eating plants, or we're talking about sometimes hormesis, a little bit of poison can go a long way sometimes. We know that that's important. Yeah, bringing that protein back in, making sure that that muscle sticks around. I, for one, was not saying at any time or by any means was not promoting. And if I did promote it this way, I didn't mean to promote it this way. I wasn't saying that you won't ever lose muscle by never eating protein. I was not saying anything like that. And you do have to keep in mind that there is some protein that comes from your fruits and your starches and so forth. But it's important to note that, again, if I made an error in saying something like that, or you interpreted it that way, I didn't mean for that to happen that way. I did say many times that when you have carbohydrates in your system, and when you're loaded up on carbohydrates for a day, I don't really think it's possible to lose much muscle. But maybe in some cases you would, and maybe in some cases it happens. But I just think that things happen in the body a little bit slower than that. And I think for each person, there's a little bit of experimenting going on, I think, is critical. So I want to encourage you guys to do is try to go really high on your carbohydrates consumption. Keep the fats as low as you can. Like, I don't know, let's just shoot for, say, like under 30, under 40, under 30 to 40 grams for a while. For those of you that haven't tried this yet, I know Cole is telling people to go with, under 10. And I know that there's some other people out there saying zero fat, but there's no such thing as a zero fat diet. You can't really, I guess a zero fat diet could be done if you didn't eat anything. But a zero fat diet is basically impossible. But because there's always gonna be some trace amounts in there, right? So going very low fat can be super beneficial. Sugar is Life has a really good channel. I've been listening to a lot of his stuff. I think he's had a little bit of misinterpretations of some of the things I said, and I made some comments back to him, and hopefully we can kind of clear. I just don't like to be misunderstood, and I know that sometimes it's my own fault. I take full responsibility, but also sometimes it's just the internet, and it's just also hearsay. Like one thing ping-pongs to another person, kind of like what happened with the smoothie thing, where people were like, oh, Mark's, thyroid and his body's totally dysregulated. His body's falling apart because he feels cold. It's like, no, these things are fucking freezing. They're super cold. And it made me feel like I was cold plunging because I was drinking like a large amount. And now I realize from learning stuff from Sugar is Life, he has some great videos up. I strongly recommend go over there and subscribe. He's got awesome information. That amount of water sitting in my stomach, and with it being that cold, just like starts to bring that body temperature down. And obviously if I did that here and there, I wouldn't have that problem, but I was doing it like 2-3 times a day, every day. And these shakes were, they're like huge. Then I'll throw them in the freezer, and I freeze it, and then so now what I'll do is, with the extra smoothie stuff that I have here and there, I'll have it way less, right? And then I'll also put it in the fridge rather than sticking it back in the freezer when I have the leftover stuff. So it's a little warmer. I'll go outside and have it in the sun. But the other issue was it was cold outside too at my house, or where I live in Northern California. And I'd go outside and I'd get the sunlight and I'd be sucking down this Slurpee that's cold. So I wasn't like in disbelief that I was cold. I just was curious as to, is there something about the fruit that could be triggering this? And again, Sugar is Life did pose some good arguments that, yeah, possibly. It could just be, a lot of, like, just so much fructose, down regulating your hormones a little bit. And so that was interesting to hear that. And so now I'm trying to introduce a little bit more starch, a little bit more glucose into the diet. What is the diet? It's, I guess it doesn't have to be called the sugar diet anymore, but I don't know why it couldn't be, because all the carbohydrates that you consume do turn to glucose in the body, and glucose is sugar. So I can still call it the sugar diet. I think it's a great name. I think it's sick. And you are, like there is a prioritization of lean proteins for sure. But like, how much lean protein do I really need to eat? I just 2-3 times a day and boom, done, right? With the lean protein sources. What are some lean protein sources? Shrimp, scallops, whitefish. Those are all really high up there on the food chain in terms of leanness. And then you have things like chicken breast, boneless, skinless. I guess it doesn't have to be boneless, but skinless chicken breast. Bone broth usually doesn't have hardly any fat in it. Rice cakes, rice, potatoes, obviously all, like most of the natty foods such as fruit, vegetables, tubers, all those types of things don't really have fat in them, except for the, some exceptions of like olives, and avocado, and some things of that nature. Now, when you're going to pull your fats down to the extremes like this, you start to get under 30 grams, under 20 grams. Maybe some days try for 0, even though 0, you're going to end up with 5 or 10 probably. The other thing that I'm eating a lot of is certified Piedmontese beef. If you want to get a discount on that, go over to their website and use the code Mark Bell. I do realize it's expensive, but I've never spit out one piece of certified Piedmontese beef, because all the beef is usable and it's all very, very lean. Sometimes it's like leaner than chicken. Their filet mignon, which is, again, it's expensive. But they have flat irons. They have other types of meat on there. That's also where I get my scallops and my shrimp. I go to Good Life Proteins, and that's a company that partnered with Piedmontese, or it's all under the same umbrella, I guess you'd say. And you can get the certified Piedmontese beef on that site as well. But then you can also get fish. So things like cod and all these proteins are going to be really lean. Sometimes protein shakes can be really lean, but, check the label and make sure they're good to go. With myself being, 200 pounds and primarily being muscle, I'm allowing myself to have some fat. So I'll still have my steak shakes, my total carnivore shake, my regular steak shake here and there. But I am watching the fat calories, and so I'll mix in This Is the Whey protein with it, which is also my brand. And that only has like 1 or 2 grams of fat in it, as opposed to the steak shake, which has 4, and total carnivore has 7. But these are either, in this case of the steak shake, it's MCT oil. And in the case of the total carnivore, it's tallow. I will also cook some of my stuff with a little bit of tallow, sometimes a little bit of olive oil. And when I say a little bit, like I'm just using like a really small amount. Sometimes just enough to kind of lather up the pan a little bit, just so stuff tastes a little bit better. Like yesterday, I cooked up scallops, and I cooked them up in a little bit of ghee, like half a teaspoon. And shit, dude, they were so good. They were like so much better than if I just had them without that. So anyway, this is kind of what the diet's turning into, what it's shaping up to be. And wanted to share that out with you guys. Again, it's a very low fat, high carbohydrate, and then you kind of do what you want with the protein. Your protein can be 1 gram, but it probably doesn't have to be 1 gram per pound of body weight, 1 gram per pound of desired body weight, 1 pound per gram of lean body mass. It could be any of those things. And if you wanted to gain weight, you wanted to get a little bit bigger, you can actually add a little bit more protein and just add a little bit more fat. I'd bring the fats up to, 50 or 70 maybe. But we don't want to bring the fats up so high that you start to gain and hold on to fat. That's the way you would do a lean bulk, is probably having the fats hover around in some of those areas. And remember, this is your own experiment, so run it the way that you want to run it. I'm super excited about the way the diet's going, and I'm super excited about all the small changes that kind of happen along the way. I'm not, I think sometimes people think, like, oh, he's changed his mind on this, changed his mind on that, changed his mind. And it's just like going in circles. Why don't you just do a balanced diet? Well, my results are, the results I'm after are extreme. I want to be, like 6% body fat. I want to kind of hang out between 6 and 8% body fat, basically for the rest of my life. How healthy is it? I don't know. Probably not great. Probably for a guy that's not naturally like super lean or skinny or thin, it's probably not great. But that's the goal. That's what I want to do. Also, I do have to point out the fact that, like, I'm not everyone's health savior. I don't really promote health and longevity. That's not what I'm really trying to represent. I'm not trying to represent dying fast either. But I mean, you guys can think back to the videos I have. When do I really talk about longevity? I do talk about walking. I talk about exercising. I talk about gaining some strength and having a better central nervous system and being able to move better. These are all things that play into our longevity. But I'm not some preacher or spokesperson for health. I'm not some preacher or spokesperson for any of those things. I'm not a performance coach. I'm the people's coach. I'm Mark Smelly Bell. I'm a former powerlifter that lost over 100 pounds. And I just like sharing out information with people. And the people that like to consume it and find it beneficial, that's awesome. And for the people that don't, that's okay too. This is just who I am. This is part of who I am. And this is me sharing stuff out to you guys. And it kind of just more reminds me of, like, I feel like I'm in a pretty good place. I feel like I've gotten myself to be lean. I've gotten myself to be strong. I've done a bunch of these different things. And it's me just trying to lend a hand to some people that might need some help. And if people want to take a hand from somebody else to get them up over that ledge, then that's just fine too. It doesn't have to be for me. But yeah, I'm not some health expert or health coach or doctor. It's not like I'm curing cancer over here. Or maybe it is. Maybe we'll find out. Or maybe you'll never know. Even better. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. This is your experiment. Go get after it. Catch you guys later.